and they go around and the sting is in their tails and they torment men, that's just giving people on this earth a taste of hell beneath. Because those creatures were already in hell. Horrible, tormenting locusts, flesh-eating worms. Their worm dieth not, and the fire is not quenched. It's explained in Isaiah 14, in the same book where the quote comes from, Isaiah 66:24, where it talks about their worm shall not die, neither shall their fire be quenched. There shall be an order. He explains earlier about worms covering you, feasting on you, feeding sweetly on you. Place of horrific creatures and flesh-eating worms, no rest day or night, screaming, wailing, darkness, fire. You say, why preach on hell? And I've moved much more to my sermon, but I'm going to close with this. Why preach on hell? You know, and I make reference to hell a lot in my sermons. This is only the second time I've ever spent a whole sermon. I've spent half a sermon a couple times where I talked about heaven and hell and doctrine. You know, only the second time I spent the whole sermon on hell. Why? Why, Pastor Anderson? Everybody who's here is probably saved and on their way to heaven. You know, we all believe in Jesus. After all, church is for the believer. Not for unsaved people. I mean, we go out and get them saved, but church is to edify the believer. Why preach on hell? Why think about something so awful? Why even go there in our minds? Why would we want, I mean, we're not going to go there. Why comprehend it? Because this week, I spent some time thinking about hell. It came into my mind for some reason. And as I thought about hell this week, I just realized the need to just give it all to God. I mean, my whole life, and just say, you know what? People are going to hell. We've got to give them the gospel. I mean, it's just to give you the urgency. And I'm not up here, you know, I'm not up here just blowing a bunch of hot air. Hey, I was out yesterday. I was out knocking doors. And guess what? I was out last week, and the week before that, and the week before that, and the week before that, for the last almost 10 years now. I mean, I started soul winning when I just turned 17 years old. I'm going to be 27 in July. I've spent almost a decade of weekly, for hours a week, knocking the doors. In addition to friends, co-workers, love them. I'm not up here just rattling my cage. I'm not up here some kind of a silver-tongued orator. I'm not up here just trying to preach a great sermon and well, I'm just going to blow off about it. Hey, I'm going to be there knocking the doors. I'm going to be on the front lines. I'm going to be in the trenches. I'm inviting you to go with me. And many of you, you've already been with me. I mean, 90% of our church was out yesterday at Eagle Bend practically. You know, a lot of, well, not really 90% of our church, but a lot of people were out. I mean, it seemed like everybody was there, you know. I mean, a lot of people were there. Hey, it was great. But you know what? You don't want to just go out one time and just be a weekend warrior one time. I'm going to tell you something. I moved to Phoenix for one reason 2.5 years ago. Didn't have any family here. Didn't have a job here. I had no reason to come here except one. To give my life to one thing. This one thing I do, as Paul said. One thing. To give my life to preach the gospel to every creature and to train you and anybody else I can to do the same thing. That's what this church is about. Now, I'll teach you everything in the Bible to the best of my ability. I mean, we'll give you a well-rounded meal here. You'll get doctrine. You better know you'll get doctrine. You'll get Bible teaching. You'll get encouragement. You'll get edification. You'll get strength. You'll get the truth from Genesis to Revelation. But you better know that the one thing that's kind of pulsing, the continual heartbeat of our church, the one thing that's pushing us forward all the time is what beat in the heart of Jesus. I believe when John leaned on Jesus' breast and he could hear the heartbeat of Jesus Christ, I think it beat the Son of Man to come to seek and to save that which was lost. The Son of Man has come to seek and save that which was lost. I must work the works of my Father while it is yet day. The night cometh when no man can work. The Son of Man has come to seek and to save that which was lost. Even as the Father hath sent me, even so send I you. Go ye therefore into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. You want to know the heartbeat of Faithful Word Baptist Church? See, I don't understand why people go to that church anyway. The pastor screams and yells. He preaches all this crazy stuff that nobody's ever even heard of. I mean, he thinks everything is wrong. I mean, anything that people do, TV, movies, rock music, worldliness, women that are dressed in modest. I mean, he goes down the list. I mean, the guy's insane. He says it's wrong for women to wear pants. I mean, he thinks that men are the boss in their home. I mean, he preaches things I've never even heard. He's a madman. Why would anybody go to that church to get a browbeating? Why would anybody go to that church that's using the old King James Bible? Why would anybody go to that church where the music's old-fashioned? I'll tell you why people come to this church. The same reason I joined an independent fundamental Baptist church when I was 17 years old. It wasn't the music. It wasn't the preaching. It wasn't the standards. It wasn't the radical preaching. And it was there. But that's not what got me to join. It was the heartbeat of Faithful Word Baptist Church. And it was the heartbeat of the church that I joined at that time. Just beat solely. Solely. Win souls. Win souls. Win souls. Love people. They're going to hell. We've got to give them the gospel. It's the driving force. But you know, sometimes the sermon's not always the best sermon in the world. Sometimes it's not the most entertaining sermon in the world. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's entertaining. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you want to go to church. Sometimes you might not. Sometimes you're healthy and feel good. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you're joyful and rejoicing with joy unspeakable and full of great glory. Sometimes you're not. Sometimes you're in heaviness because of manifold temptation. Sometimes you're not. But there's one thing that never changes in this church. The preaching may go along different themes. The membership may fluctuate up and down in numbers of attendance. But one thing never changes here. It's the week in, week out, day after day, win souls, win souls, win souls, win souls. It never changes. It never stops. Consistency, week after week, day in, day out. When you're tired of it and you say, well, I'm tired of church. This is a phase that I was going through. But you know what? One thing that's not a phase is hell and soul winning and the gospel. And that's what keeps me going. You know what I mean? That's what keeps me going. I mean, it's not preaching that keeps me going. What keeps me going is soul winning. That's what keeps me going. I'm just being honest with you. I mean, the thing that keeps me going is soul winning. I mean, that's the thing that keeps it real to me. That's the thing that keeps me motivated. Because it's a job that's never going to be done until I breathe my last breath. It's the job that I'm going to work on. All those maps. What kind of a stupid decoration is that? A bunch of maps. You know what kind of a stupid decoration it is? It's where I'm going to spend the rest of my life. The map of Phoenix, the giant map of Phoenix, spend the rest of my life making sure that we knock every single door in the whole valley. The map of Arizona, spending the rest of my life making sure that we knock every small town in Arizona, knock every door like we did in Gila Bend yesterday. We're going to go back and finish a few doors, but we knocked 80% of the town. And we'll finish it, we'll go down a few people and just finish the remainder. Knock every door in every small town in Arizona that's under, say, 2,000 people or 3,000 people in number. That's what I'm going to give my life to. You know why there's a map of the United States out there? That map represents the fact that we're going to send out young men and men to go start churches all across America. Because the local church should beget after its own kind other local churches. Just like I started this church here, I'm not talented. I'm not anybody special. I'm just a man like anybody else. I hope that many young men will come out of this church someday and go start churches all across that map. We'll put their face on every place that they start and say, there's a lighthouse, there's a candlestick of the gospel. And then a map of the world to represent the people that we support as missionaries around the world. And so that the gospel can go to the dark corners of the earth. That's why it has the verses that say, but you shall receive power after the Holy Ghost has come upon you. You shall be witnesses unto me both in Jerusalem, that's the map of Phoenix, and in all Judea, it's the map of Arizona. Every small town, every village, as Jesus went to every village. And in Samaria, the adjacent, the area around it, the other states, the nation, America, and on the uttermost part of the earth. We're never going to finish, folks. It's never going to be over. Solely. Let's bow our heads and have a word of prayer. Father, it was an unpleasant sermon. It wasn't one that I even wanted to preach. It's not the funnest kind of sermon to preach at all. It's a horrible sermon. But God, You took me on a tour earlier this week of hell, and I just felt like I needed to take my people on the